Her sister said it like a fact. You'll never find better. I didn't argue. I just remembered. And when the day came, I made sure she saw exactly who I did find. In one photo, one tag, one smile she'll never forget. She and I dated for 3 years. It wasn't fireworks. It was comfort, routine, and silent recalculations. Her family always came first, and I tried to accept that. But somewhere along the way, support turned into tolerating jabs, side eyes, and the condescending approval of her sister, the golden one. I was always the nice guy who'd be lucky if she stayed. I used to nod, stay silent, take the higher ground. But silence doesn't heal when it's mistaken for weakness. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's precise. It happened over salmon and side-eye. Her family dinners always had that curated polish, like a magazine spread trying too hard. Cloth napkins no one used, artisanal bread no one touched, a bottle of wine Amanda insisted on opening herself, as if we were to be impressed by the label she couldn't pronounce. I'd learned not to comment. Just smile, offer to help with dishes, be the agreeable boyfriend who understood their dynamic. We were midway through talking about travel plans. My girlfriend had mentioned Greece, casually, like a passing daydream. I picked up on it, offered to look into some fall dates that might work. Normal, supportive, partner-like. That's when Amanda leaned forward, wine glass in hand, and dropped it like punctuation. You'll never find better. She didn't laugh. Not really. Just held that effortless smirk, the kind that implies she knows you better than you do. Everyone else chuckled, that polite family chuckle that means, we're letting this slide because it fits the script. My girlfriend didn't flinch. She didn't smile either. She just sighed, half smiled, and kept scrolling on her phone. That was the part that hit me. Not Amanda's words. I was used to those by now. It was the casualness, the complete lack of surprise. This wasn't an outburst. It was muscle memory. I didn't say anything. I chewed. I swallowed. I stared at the edge of my plate like it had something helpful to offer. What struck me wasn't the insult. It was the economy of it. Just 5 words. No venom. No raised voice. Just judgment, delivered as fact. And the laughter? That was the real approval. It didn't matter what I'd done, how much I showed up, how I supported her sister through 2 job changes and 1 minor health scare. In this house, I wasn't being measured on effort. I was being weighed against invisible men who hadn't been invited yet. It wasn't new, but it landed differently this time. Maybe because I'd hoped, stupidly, that after 3 years, I'd earned something more than tolerance. I looked at my girlfriend. Not in a pleading way, just a glance. A small, desperate reach for a raised eyebrow, a squeeze of the hand under the table, some tiny nonverbal cue that she didn't agree, that this wasn't okay. But she was already texting someone back. Her eyes didn't even flick toward me. I realized then, I wasn't part of the conversation. I was the topic. And in that moment, surrounded by casual cruelty wrapped in table manners, I understood something that had been building quietly over time. I wasn't dating one person. I was dating into a hierarchy, and I was positioned somewhere near the help. Later that night, we were brushing our teeth side by side. The mirror reflected what we always looked like, coordinated, calm, on paper. I waited until she rinsed her mouth before I said anything. Just 1 line, measured and quiet. That thing Amanda said tonight. It was weird. She didn't even look at me, just wiped her mouth and said, she's just like that. 5 words again. Same number as Amanda used, and somehow, even colder. She's just like that. As if that was a personality trait, like, likes dogs, or can't eat gluten. Not an explanation, a dismissal. The kind that tells you the problem isn't what was said, but that you're reacting to it. I didn't push. I never did. There was an unspoken rule in our relationship that everything went smoother when I absorbed the hit and let it fade. That's what being mature meant, managing my emotions privately so hers could stay smooth and undisturbed. But something shifted this time. I kept going. I'm just saying, if I said something like that to one of your friends, you'd be pissed. She paused, then sighed. Amanda doesn't mean anything by it. You know how she is. She jokes. She pushes. It's her way of showing she cares. Right. Of course. Just like bullies in childhood, like you, when they trip you. Just like sarcasm is love, and mockery is mentorship. I nodded like I was satisfied. But inside, something folded up. Something old. I remembered being told I was too sensitive as a kid, that I overthought, took things too personally, didn't know how to take a joke. It always made me feel defective, like my instincts were miswired. Now here I was again, in a relationship where my role was to reinterpret reality in a way that made it easier for everyone else to keep misbehaving. She means well, she said finally, slipping into bed. That phrase again. It's like the family motto, she means well. Meaning well had become a blanket excuse for any cut that didn't bleed openly. And I was expected to be the translator, the emotional janitor, the one who understood that when Amanda insulted me, it wasn't really about me. It was about her standards, her protectiveness, her way of expressing loyalty. But here's the thing about being told not to take things personally. Eventually, you stop taking anything personally, including the relationship. You go numb in increments. And once that process starts, it doesn't reverse. It just continues, quietly, politely, until one day, there's nothing left to interpret. A week later, we were back at her parents' place. Some birthday, some barbecue, the specifics blur. It was always some occasion. Always a reason to gather and perform. The usual cast was there. Amanda with her curated outfit, her father retelling stories with selective memory, her mother orchestrating everything from a safe distance behind passive smiles. At one point, her mom pulled me aside near the hallway, a classic move. It always happened away from the crowd, near the framed photos of ski trips and Christmas mornings I wasn't in. She told me I was good for her daughter, that I brought calm, that I made her less reactive. These were compliments, I think, but they landed like observations, clinical, detached, as if I were a tool that helped regulate someone she didn't know how to manage on her own. Then came the pivot. She said Amanda was just protective, that she only acts that way because she wants the best for her sister. She just worries her sister will settle. Settle. That word had weight. It stuck in my ear like gum under a desk. It explained everything without trying to. Amanda wasn't just being a sister. She was being the evaluator, the judge, the quality control, and the fact that I was still around, still showing up to dinners, still loading the dishwasher like a good sport, didn't mean I'd passed. It meant I hadn't failed enough to be removed. The worst part was that her mom said it like a kindness, like she was giving me a heads up about office politics. I nodded, smiled, thanked her. I'd learned the choreography by then, but internally, it settled somewhere heavy. I wasn't being brought into the family. I was being studied. And my girlfriend, she never questioned it, never pushed back. She had grown up in this dynamic. To her, it was normal. Amanda's dominance wasn't seen as invasive. It was seen as protective, necessary, loving, even. I began to wonder if that's why she liked being with me. Because I didn't push. Because I knew how to stay quiet, how to hold the edges without asking for space at the center. Being with her didn't feel like partnership anymore. It felt like being vouched for. And every kind gesture, every little show of support, felt more like conditional approval than love. It's hard to pinpoint when the shift happens. It's not a slap. It's not a fight. It's a hallway conversation about how Amanda's just worried she'll settle. That was the moment I knew I wasn't the enemy. But I sure as hell wasn't on the team. It was late. She was half asleep, phone tilted sideways on the comforter, scrolling out of habit more than interest. I was beside her, not tired yet, just existing in that dull hour where conversation becomes unnecessary. I asked if I could see some photos from college. I don't even know why. I think I wanted to understand her more. Or maybe, if I'm honest, I wanted to find a time before Amanda's voice had gotten so loud in our lives. She handed over her phone without hesitation, and I started browsing. There they were, the usual suspects. Dorm room selfies, Halloween parties, a parade of half-drunk peace signs and plastic red cups. Amanda showed up often, always near the center, always camera ready, effortlessly posed. And then I saw her. Not Amanda, the other one. A woman with presence. Confident, but not flashy. One arm draped around my girlfriend, the other holding a trophy of some kind. She looked like she wasn't trying to impress anyone, and still somehow did. I paused. Who's that? I asked, tilting the phone slightly toward her. She blinked. Oh, that's Natalie. Amanda hated her. I remember that exact phrasing. Not disliked. Not had issues with. Hated. They both ran for student president. Guess who won? She laughed, but the kind of laugh that carries leftover tension. Not fondness. Not even amusement. Something bitter that had lingered for years without release. And just like that, the photo clicked into place. Natalie, the one who won. The one Amanda hated. The one who never appeared in any photos after that. It wasn't just that Natalie disappeared. It was that she'd been deleted, scrubbed from the visual history, rewritten out. And now, a woman who clearly had impact, who had mattered enough to stir hatred, had become a ghost in their narrative. That made me pause. Really pause. Amanda didn't hate people lightly. She hated people who reflected something back to her. Something competitive. Something threatening. And more than that, something equal. I looked at my girlfriend again. She was already drifting off, unaware of the connection I was stitching together. This wasn't just a family that had patterns. It was a system, a hierarchy, with Amanda at the top, and anyone who didn't submit quietly erased. For the first time, I thought about what it meant that I'd been allowed to stay as long as I had, and what it might mean when I finally left. Natalie was no longer in their pictures, but somehow, she was still very much present, and I had no idea then how full circle that would become. It came back to me while driving. Strange how memory works, how the brain unearths something years old like a pebble you didn't know was in your shoe. Amanda's birthday. Last year. We were at a rooftop bar she insisted on, the kind where drinks come in mason jars and the music is too loud for real conversation. Everyone was dressed like they were auditioning for a tech startup ad. I remember trying to fit in, laughing at stories I didn't find funny, nodding at references I didn't understand. At one point, I handed Amanda her gift, something I'd picked out myself. Not expensive, just thoughtful. I'd remembered something she mentioned once about vintage travel posters, and I found one from the exact year she went to Italy. Framed it, wrapped it. I even wrote a note. When she opened it, she smiled, polite, brief, already distracted. Then I said something stupid, something that was meant to be complimentary. You've built a great career. It was meant as praise. It came from a real place. I'd seen her grind. I thought I was offering respect. She didn't thank me. She didn't even pretend to. Instead, she looked at me directly, held the stare a little too long, and said, "Well, someone had to." The table laughed. Everyone smiled, like it was classic Amanda. Quick wit, sharp tongue. I laughed too. That's the part one hate most now. I laughed with them. I took the hit and acted like it hadn't landed. But in the car, months later, stuck at a red light, I finally saw it for what it was. That wasn't banter. That was a verdict. Her success wasn't just hers. It was her way of reminding everyone else where they stood, including me, especially me. That moment wasn't about a gift. It was a correction. I'd stepped out of line by suggesting I could evaluate her, even positively. Amanda didn't need my approval. In her world, it was only ever supposed to go one way. And when I thought about it more, all of it, I realized she hadn't just been critiquing me for 3 years. She'd been eroding me. Quietly. Strategically. With comments dressed as jokes, compliments laced with pity, observations coated in faux concern. I'd been grateful for their acceptance, not realizing it was a leash. And maybe the worst part? No one else saw it. Or maybe they did, and just thought I could take it. That was the moment, sitting at the light, when I understood. Amanda had never really seen me as her sister's boyfriend. She'd seen me as a placeholder. By the time we officially ended, it wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No betrayal. Just erosion. The kind that happens quietly over months, where the messages get shorter, the jokes lose warmth, and silence stops feeling comfortable. We didn't break up because of Amanda, but she was the soundtrack playing under everything. Subtle, grating, relentless. When it finally ended, there were no grand gestures. Just a text that went unanswered longer than usual. A dinner that didn't get rescheduled. We slipped into distance like it had always been there. After that, I didn't date for a while. Not out of pain, out of clarity. I needed to recalibrate what I was even looking for, and what I was willing to accept. Then I met someone. Quiet, grounded, absurdly funny when she wanted to be, and, most importantly, easy to be around. Not simple, not boring, just unperformative. No stage, no roles, no hierarchy. The way she looked at me felt different, not impressed, not curious. Just steady, like she saw me clearly and didn't flinch. It startled me at first. I didn't realize how long I'd gone without that kind of stillness. Months passed. We moved in together. And one weekend morning, over coffee and half-washed dishes, I proposed. No speeches, no sunset cliffs. Just a quiet yes that felt more real than anything I'd rehearsed before. We didn't rush to post it. There was no urgency to make it public. But eventually, like everything now, it made its way online. Just one photo. The two of us on a bench, under filtered sunlight. No filters needed. She tagged a few friends from college. That's when I saw the name. Natalie. Yes, that Natalie. Amanda's old rival. The one who'd vanished from every group photo like a deleted file. The one whose existence had briefly cracked open something bitter in Amanda's voice years ago. I paused. Not because I was afraid of drama. I was long past that. I paused because it felt poetic. Not forced. Not planned. Just accurate. Natalie had become friends with my fiancé sometime during grad school. Different programs, different paths. One of those random, adult life overlaps you can't predict. And now here we were. The photo was already up. The tag was automatic. But I added it again myself. Deliberately. Not for pettiness. Not for attention. Just as punctuation. Because Amanda once said I'd never find better. And now, she'd have to scroll past living proof that I had. And not only that, I'd found someone who wasn't trying to win. Someone who had already let go of the race. The post was up for less than a day before I started noticing the ripple. First my ex. She liked it. Just a small heart at the bottom of the photo, nothing else. It stayed there for about 20 minutes. Then it vanished. Unliked. No comment. No message. Just a quiet digital retraction. The kind that's louder than any text. Then Amanda. She viewed my story. Twice. I'm not a big poster. I don't curate. But that day I'd put up a short clip. Me and my fiancé walking through a market, laughing about something dumb, wind in her hair, unposed. Just joy. Real, undirected. You couldn't fake it if you tried. Amanda watched that story like it owed her an explanation. Then came the message. 3 words. Wow. Interesting choice. No name. No punctuation. No emotion. But it landed like a scalpel. I stared at it for a long time. Not because it hurt. It didn't. Not anymore. But because it was such a perfect summary of her. So much embedded in so little. The backhanded curiosity. The performative restraint. The refusal to be direct. It wasn't a message. It was a nudge. A little reminder that she was watching. Still weighing. Still judging from her private balcony. Sipping red wine and pretending to be above it all. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say. I did. I had paragraphs. But responding would have granted her exactly what she wanted, relevance. Entry. And I'd finally stopped issuing invitations. Let her sit with the tag. Let her sit with the photo. Let her sit with the reality that the woman she once erased from memory was now standing beside me. Not just smiling, but thriving. And more than that, unbothered. Natalie didn't know the history. Not the whole version. Just fragments. The outlines of an old rivalry she'd mostly outgrown. The rest, the emotional landscape, lived in Amanda's head, not ours. The group chat, I imagine, was active. Screenshots. Look who he's with. Passive comments like, that's unexpected. Maybe a recycled version of, I hope he's happy. A few emojis. Some strategic silence. But I didn't see any of it. Because I wasn't in that ecosystem anymore. I wasn't fodder. I wasn't subject. I wasn't even present. I had walked out of the narrative without slamming the door. And somehow, that seemed to echo louder than anything I could have said back. There's a strange kind of power that comes when you realize you don't need to be understood anymore. Not in that space. Not by those people. I used to think healing came from confrontation, that clarity was earned by making them see what they did, how it felt, how long I stayed quiet. I believed that if I explained it the right way, in the right tone, they'd have to recognize it. But recognition isn't healing. It's just a different kind of dependency. The truth is, I didn't need Amanda to understand. I didn't need her to admit anything. I didn't even need her to stop. I just needed to stop playing. Because that's what it had been all along, a game. A system. A silent competition, where value was doled out in portions and presence had to be earned through compatibility with unspoken rules. You had to laugh at the right jokes. Shrug off the wrong ones. Know your place and decorate it. With my ex, I'd learned to move within that system like a second language. I knew when to nod, when to disappear. I wasn't a partner. I was an accessory. Harmless, agreeable, grateful. But my fiancée didn't require any of that. With her, I didn't feel edited. I didn't have to manage my tone, track social points, or carry invisible debt. There was no scoreboard. No comparison. No underlying narrative that I was lucky to be there. She didn't shrink to make room for me. But she didn't expand to overshadow, either. She simply stood with me. Equal weight. Equal light. And Natalie? She was just a person. Not a symbol. Not a grudge. Not a pawn. The fact that Amanda still viewed her as a threat said more about Amanda than it did about Natalie, and far more than it ever said about me. That's when I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Amanda, not at my ex, not at myself, because there was nothing left to win. No room I needed to enter. No table I was still trying to be invited back to. Peace didn't come with the engagement. It came with the indifference. The moment I looked at Amanda's message, her wow, interesting choice, and felt absolutely nothing. No rage. No victory. Just silence. Not the silence of being ignored. The silence of finally, fully stepping out of orbit. The next day, Amanda posted one of her signature quotes. White text on a beige background. Serif font. Centered alignment. The kind of thing that looks profound if you don't read it too closely. It said, "Some people settle for comfort. Others choose standards." No hashtags. No comments. No tags. Just floating there like a threat with its serial number filed off. I didn't respond. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just noted it. Years ago, that kind of post would have triggered something in me. A need to defend. To clarify. To say, this isn't about you. Or worse, it is about you. And here's why that's unfair. But now I just read like noise. Like someone yelling into a canyon, hoping the echo made them feel bigger. Later that evening, I posted another photo. No caption. No staging. Just us, my fiancée and I, at a farmer's market, laughing at something off-screen. I don't even remember what it was. Probably something dumb. But we were fully present. Happy in the kind of way that doesn't require witnesses to be real. And yes, Natalie was there too. Not framed intentionally. Not a wink to the camera. Just part of the scene. Holding a coffee, smiling naturally, mid-conversation with someone outside the shot. I tagged her again. Not for Amanda. Not for anyone, really. Just because she was there. Because I wasn't curating a message anymore. I was living a moment. And for people like Amanda, that's the worst offense of all. To exist in happiness without permission. Without performance. Without their narrative shaping the context. The likes trickled in. Some familiar. Some unexpected. I saw that Amanda had viewed it, but there was no message this time. That's how I knew it landed. She understood what I hadn't said. What I hadn't needed to say. That I was gone. And not in the way people storm out, but in the quieter way that says, I don't need to close the door. You're not coming after me. There's a kind of execution that doesn't involve confrontation at all. No revenge. No speech. Just the final, clean withdrawal of energy. I didn't unfollow anyone. I didn't block. I didn't delete. I just stopped needing to be seen by them. And that, I think, is what they never expected. That the loudest thing I'd ever say would be silence. The messages stopped. The story views faded. Or maybe they just stopped making them visible. That's the thing about people like Amanda. When they lose control of the narrative, they retreat quietly, like it's their idea. Eventually, the family unfollowed. No dramatic exodus. Just quiet digital drift. A cousin here. An uncle there. Ties dissolving without announcement. I didn't chase it. I didn't mourn it. One text did come through, weeks later. From my ex. I hope you're happy. No context. No question mark. Just that. And it hit me how little I had to say back. I didn't respond. Not because I was trying to make a point, but because there was no point. What would I even say? Thanks. You too? Actually, yeah. Deeply, quietly, uncomplicatedly happy. I just let it sit. Because by then, I'd stopped needing her acknowledgement to make my experience real. That was the final shift, not the engagement, not the photos, not the tag. But the moment I realized that their approval had never been required. It had only ever been borrowed, and now, finally, returned. There's a weight you don't notice until it's gone. A posture you didn't realize you'd been holding. The kind where your shoulders curve just slightly forward in every room. Your voice softens at the end of every sentence. Your instincts double-check themselves before speaking. Living with Amanda's standards in the background was like walking with someone else's GPS in your pocket. Even when you knew the way, you waited for permission to turn. Now, I wake up in a home where nothing needs to be translated. Where jokes don't land like tests. Where silence doesn't feel like withholding. Where no one is scoring your presence against a scale you'll never see. It's not louder here. It's just quieter. And for someone like me, someone who spent years mistaking adaptation for compatibility, that quiet is revolutionary. I didn't find someone better. That's the lie Amanda always told. That there's a ladder. That every relationship is a transaction in upward mobility. That love is about securing the highest bid. No, I found someone right. Someone whose love didn't require me to disappear to be deserving. And that difference, that distance, is immeasurable. So no, I didn't clap back. I didn't win. I just left the game and started living like I was never supposed to play it in the first place. If they need to belittle you to feel elevated, were they ever standing that tall to begin with?